We're trying to make something better, make it worse.
I think it looks nice.
Okay. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janabalava Girivaradhari Gopi Janabalava Girivaradhari Shodhanandana Rajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Shodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Sri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Paramanande Hari Hari Bo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pucharini Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschati Namaste Gauravani Sri Mortari Dinatani Rupanuga Vihuda Prasadanta Dantahari Marujvala Madhurya Ujvala Premaja Sri Rupanuga Bhaktiras Gaura Karuna Shakti Vikraya Namastuti. One other prayer. Why am I not remembering? I think there's two other ones. Just give me a second. Brain dead. Go to the songbook. Hold on a second. No, wait one moment. Where are those prayers located? Oh yeah, I missed this. Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daita Kapabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayini Kabave. I should read the translations. Maum Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Dhanamane. So we understand that. That's standard. And Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daita, that means the servant of the daughter, the servant of the one who has mercy. The Sri Varshabhanavi, that's the daughter of King Vrishabhanu. Daita means, I think, mercy. One who was the deliverer. No, that's not what I did. Anyway, servant of a lover, Radharani. Yeah, that's Krishna. The one who's attracted to Radharani. Translation, I offer my obeisances to Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daita, who is favored by Srimati Radharani, who is the ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. So that was his initiated name. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the name he accepted after sannyas. Madhur Ujjvala Premaja Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Sri Gaura Kuruna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who deliver devotional service which is enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. So Mahaprabhu's energy, like empowered incarnation. And Mahaprabhu gave Krishna consciousness in this mood of Radha and Krishna, so it's coming through Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And exactly following the line of Rupa Goswami, that is our line, we all follow. He is our Acharya. Everything must be in agreement with Rupa Goswami. And the last one, Namaste Gauravani Simurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Vivudapa Siddhanta Vanta Harine. Now for my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement which is against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Rupa Goswami. We could give a lecture on each one of these verses, but we'll talk more about this. But as the verse above says, that he followed Rupa Goswami, and in doing so, he was intolerant for anyone representing Gaudiya Vaishnavism or Vaishnavism in general that deviated from the path. Now, I'm going to tell you something that is going to completely shock you. So, I don't know what you're going to do after the shock, but this will shock you. Believe me, it will shock you to death. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it gives you an idea of what the world was like when Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared. And even though there was the succession prior to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there were a lot of what we call sahajiya or upper sampradayas. Upper means against, so upper siddhanta, against the real teachings. And just to give you an idea of how deviation works, this is probably the best illustration of deviation that I can think of. As we know, one of the highest aspect of Madhurya Ras is Krishna likes to dance with other men's wives. Of course, they're really his wives, but anyway, he plays that Leela, stolen property. Somehow or other, stolen property is more relishable than if you buy it. And enjoying with another man's wife is more exciting than enjoying with your wife. Well, we don't recommend you do this, but for Krishna, I mean, in general, we can say is more exciting. So there was a group, a sampradaya. Many of these groups did not follow the regular principles. Now, listen to what they said. They said, if you want to understand Radha Krishna Leela, you have to find another man's wife and elope with her, have a relationship with her, and then you'll understand Radha Krishna. I told you I was going to blow your mind. Does that give you an idea how bad it was? Inconceivable to us, right? As Westerners, that, you know, there have been deviations in Christianity. I think the worst thing with the Crusades, but something of this nature, it's never happened to my knowledge. They, you know, they'll say enjoy with your wife. They won't say enjoy with someone else's wife. So that's what Krishna does. So we have to do what he does. And some of these sects, they dress up like women in saris because, you know, Madhurya Rasa is the highest. Krishna loves the gopis. So the men are dressed up like women. You know, it gets, I mean, they do smoke marijuana and other things. So that is, could partially explain the madness. But this is what was going on at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And lots of incarnations. India is famous as a place for bogus incarnations and real incarnations. And also famous as a place for bogus gurus and real gurus. And not everyone has the ability to discriminate between them. So anyway, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's looking at this situation and he's thinking, there is so much work to do. And he was a grihastha. Eventually he had 10 children, I believe. His first wife died and then he remarried. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was the 7th child. So nowadays, you know, if you have one child, that's hard, or 2 or 3, you know, financially it's a burden. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a magistrate. He did other things, but eventually he became a judge. And so he was busy with that. And previously he was busy, you know, you have 10 kids and moving around, and it's India, and you know, I mean, India is bad enough now with disease. What to speak of then? It was much worse. You know, even when we first went to India, we'd have to get cholera shots and maybe shots for other things, like, you know, a lot of devotees got jaundice and so forth. But then it was worse, you know. So there were epidemics. You hear about epidemics in India, cholera, villages were, everyone in the village died, you know. So you can imagine he was busy. And so he had his vision. He wanted to expose these bogus groups and give the real Siddhanta, the real truth. So he thought, it's not going to be possible that I do this alone, and I need help. And so he prayed to Lord Jagannath. At that time, fortunately, he was the magistrate in Puri, and he was also in charge of the temple. So he was there in Puri. So naturally, he would pray to Lord Jagannath. So he said, please send one of your men to help me. I can't do this alone. And he had 11 children. So how did he know which one? How did he know if any of them were the one? How did he know which one? Well, he knew, but confirmation was during Ratha Yatra. It's not Ratha Yatra, it's actually pronounced Ratha Yatra. But you don't have to pronounce it that way, because if you say Ratha Yatra in your country, everyone will say, what? The Ratha Yatra festival. What festival? You mean Ratha Yatra? Yeah, no, I mean Ratha Yatra. Anyway, just having fun with you and Sanskrit. And we are horribly mispronouncing Sanskrit in the Hare Krishna movement, but we'll still go back to God. And when we get there, we'll pronounce it properly. So don't worry about it. So if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you don't read it, I won't talk to you. You're not worth talking to. But so, assuming you read it, then we can talk. in Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you've read the story about Rath Yatra, then you'll see that sometimes the cart stops. It just stops and nobody can move it. It doesn't matter. You get all the muscle men in Puri, they can't move it. Lord Jagannath does not want to go. He stopped the cart. And then Mahaprabhu came, knocked it with his head, and it was moving. Sometimes in our Rath Yatras, that also happens. So in this Rath Yatra, the cart stopped in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home. For 3 days it stopped. So this is not unusual for Rath Yatra, at least in India. Could you imagine in America, a cart stops for 3 days and everybody stays there? It stopped for 3 days. Bhaktivinoda Thakur arranged for 24-hour kirtan. So that was nice, right? Having Rath Yatra, 3 days. Really? What do you do in the first day? We're going with the cart. What are you doing the second day? With the cart, third day. If we said 3 days, you think, well, 1 day is, kirtan day, 1 day for the Rath Yatra cart, 1 day for some seminar. No. So they had 24-hour kirtan. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said to his wife, go, bring him. So they brought him, and then a garland fell off. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, oh, this must be the one. And then it was time for his Anaprashna, the first eating of grains. That was right at the time. He was like 6 months old. So well, they did the grain ceremony right on the cart. And when you do the grain ceremony, it's also the custom that you have coins in one place and you have books in another place, and the child is like 5 feet away, and then you see the proclivity of the inclination of the child. Do they pick up the money or do they pick up the books? And he went to the books and he held Bhagavatam to his chest like that. So apparently Bhaktivinoda Thakur understood that this was the person he prayed for before this happened, because he had to give him a name. And he gave him the name Bimal Prasad, which indirectly means that he is the Prasad of Lord Jagannath. But Bimal is the deity of Durga, and that deity is given prasadam at the temple, and then that the prasadam is distributed widely. So it said Bimal is the Jagannath's mercy distributed. So you're the mercy of you could say you're the mercy of Lord Jagannath in distributing. You distribute his mercy, something like that. But anyway, generally we say directly, indirectly, it's the name of Lord Jagannath. So he, in thanking Lord Jagannath and recognizing Lord Jagannath, he gave him that name. So we all know the story of the mango. Some mangoes were bought, and then he just went to the mango and was attempting to eat it, and his father stopped him. And it's so interesting when he was stopped, and Bhaktisiddhanta was saying, oh, just see how bad I am for doing this. Like as soon as his father chastised him, he understood that, I have the wrong mentality. Of course, this is Leela. It teaches us through their actions, it teaches us. But he was condemning himself for doing that at the age of 3. Inconceivable, right? A 3-year-old is like grasping. I remember my daughter. She didn't seem to understand anything that I said till she was about 5. Like whatever I'd say, it was just like tip, tip, like at that age, I mean, obviously it gets in, but you just don't see it right away. You shouldn't do that because it's bad, and then they just do it like not their fault. It's just. So I remember around 5 when I'd say things, she's like, oh, okay. So at 3, he's having this realization of how sinful this was. Amazing. And of course, as we know, he decided at the age of 3 that he would not ever eat a mango because of the sin. That was his repentance, which is nice. It's nice to be repentant. It's nice to take some austerity if you do something wrong. If we couldn't eat anything that wasn't offered, we weren't raised as devotees. There would be nothing to eat. or it'd be difficult. But you know what I'm saying. If you make a mistake, you may want to think of some austerity that you can perform to make up for it, just to purify yourself, remind yourself. Of course, for us, the big austerity is to chant the holy name without offense, and that removes contamination, and to ask for forgiveness. But in Krishna consciousness, we don't put a lot of emphasis on asking Krishna to forgive us or repentance and so forth. But if you study the lives of the Acharya and you study our philosophy, you'll see it's actually there. It just never got the what's the light? The studio lights. What do you call that?
Spotlight?
What?
The spotlight?
Spotlight, exactly. Repentance never got the spotlight in ISKCON. I mean, it's there in the examples, the lives of our acharyas. It's there in our philosophy. It just never got a spotlight. So a lot of devotees think, well, it's really not part of our philosophy like Catholicism, repentance. And it's like, no, it actually is. There are things in our philosophy that don't get spotlighted. And so we think they're not there, but they actually are. Like some devotee thought our philosophy doesn't teach anything about forgiveness. It does. Bhaktivinoda Thakur spotlighted it. And it also depends on your mentality, because sometimes if you don't have the right mentality, you could read something, but you just doesn't register. Like, well, we're not supposed to do that. We're just supposed to chant Hare Krishna. I don't know if you've had that experience, but it's usually the experience comes when you're rereading something, especially if you're rereading it for like the 5th time, and then you read something and say, is this a new edition of the book? I don't remember it. And you realize it's not a new edition. And I was not in the state where I could even pay attention to that, because I was too proud or whatever. And I didn't even realize, it didn't register. It was just in my head. It was just like, yeah, the words were in my head, but nothing happened, nothing clicked. So repentance is a part of bhakti. And so here he's exhibiting it at the age of 3. Now, one thing should be noted, that the pastimes, the childhood leelas, or actually all of them, but especially the childhood leelas, they seem more amazing because, when one's an adult and they do amazing things, you just say, oh, they're an amazing adult, very intelligent and very empowered. And we can just say, yeah, well, he's an empowered acharya, so yes. But when they do it at the age of 3, then it's extraordinary and it stands out. And you'll see this in all the acharyas of Mahaprabhu's associates who come. This is how they do it. So there was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had a perfect memory and was extremely intelligent. I don't know what his IQ is, but it was off the charts because he never studied. He got all perfect grades, but he never studied because he wasn't interested in school. He was interested in Shastra. So when he was 7, he knew the whole Bhagavad Gita, every verse by heart, and he could explain every verse, not just memorize. Sometimes we memorize. Yada yada hi dharma shaklanir bhavati bharata avyuktanam adharmasha tadatmanam. What does that mean? Tanya, what does it mean? Let me look it up. I don't know. Yeah. So a lot of times we memorize a verse, or it means, I know what it means, whenever there's a decline in religion and a rise in irreligion, I come to establish Dharma. Yeah, okay. Explain it. So he, 7 years old, he didn't just memorize it. He knew the translations and he could explain it. I know, Tanya, you can explain it all, but just using you as the guinea pig, not that it's true. So, but in school, he wasn't interested. And basically what he was doing was he's just studying what he wanted to study. And eventually he ended up studying the works of great acharyas. And so you see this pattern. he's Bhaktisiddhanta's editor and proofreader at the age of 7. Hare Krishna. He's in school, all good grades, doesn't do the work, doesn't pay attention, no problem. Because he's interested in the Shastra. Bhaktivinoda trained him up in, this book publishing was really important in our line. So printing, Prabhupada knew a lot about printing presses. Did you know that? When they had a printing, because that's Brihat Mridanga. It's a Brihat Mridanga in Gaudiya Math. They had many printing presses in different maths. It was like Prabhupada was printing his own books. This is like, you want to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava, you better know about printing. Otherwise, we throw you to the lions. So he knew printing, editing, writing, obviously proofreading. So he was at 7, he was the proofreader and editor. Could you imagine? So anyway, he didn't pay attention in school, but obviously as a genius, did well. And then he got into Sanskrit college, and then the same thing happened. He wasn't interested in the classes, ultimately being a Sanskrit scholar, and he'd spend all the time. He entered the school, he liked it, because it had a huge library, of Sanskrit literature. And so obviously the Shastras are in Sanskrit. So he spent his time studying Sanskrit. Reading these Sanskrit literatures. That's what he liked to do. Right? And then, after 2 years, he dropped out, and he was thinking, if I go through this education, ultimately, education is just preparing me to be a Shudra, because the definition of Shudra is you work for someone. No offense if you work for a company, but you are a Shudra anyway. I just have to say that, just so you know, just to make you feel bad. If you're a Brahmin, you don't work for anybody unless there's an emergency. Brahmins, of course, this isn't Vedic society, but Brahmins are supported. They just teach whatever they get, 1 chapati, 1,000,000 chapatis, they teach. So in the Varnashram concept, then if you're going to university, it's Shudra training. That's all it is. Everything you're being trained for is Shudra. Well, if you get an MBA, then you're being trained to be a Vaishnava. You go to West Point, maybe Kshatriya, maybe some military training. So anyway, he was thinking, I'm just being trained to get a job, so what's the point? And I don't want to get married and do all that. So he dropped out. But as I said, he liked it because of the library. So as we know, he's an incredible scholar. And the king of Tripura wanted to do the history of his lineage, and they couldn't finish the history of it. All these pundits, they couldn't finish it. So he invited him. He said, come and you can live here, do this service, I will pay you, and you'll have free time. So he did it, I think, for 10 years. And you know why? Because the king had an amazing library. That's why he did it. And he converted everyone into Vaishnavism, or maybe they were Vaishnavas, but they became very elevated, because his whole point was, if I can't teach about Krishna, I don't want to teach anything. So there's so many stories. There's so many stories about Bhaktisiddhanta, but I think it's really good to go into the lessons behind the stories to understand, so we can benefit from it. And I think this is. One thing I would like to emphasize: he learned every verse of Bhagavad Gita. I mentioned to you, I'm doing a recording. I just have to finish. I haven't had time. I have to add more verses of the Bhakti Shastri verses. I think they're like 50 verses, mostly from the Gita, like a couple from Nectar Devotion, a couple from Isopanishad, a couple from Nectar of Instruction. They're mostly Gita verses. And if you take Bhakti Shastri, you will be tested on these verses, I believe, orally. You just have to recite them. So I made a recording which you will get, hopefully before I go to India, I can finish. This will take a few more hours, I'll finish it. So here's my request demand. It's not really a request, it's really a demand. you should know all those verses. At least you should memorize all those verses, Sanskrit, English, at least. And now what I'm finding in modern day ISKCON, there are many, 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 many devotees that don't know any verses at all, which is not good. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is you just play this over and over again, even if you don't want to memorize them. If you play it enough, you'll probably will memorize them. I've learned so many verses because devotees only knew a few verses and they'd quote those verses at every class. That's how I learned them. I didn't even try to memorize them. It's just, these are the 10 verses everybody knows, and every speaker quoted the 10 verses, and you heard those 10 verses every day. After a few months, you were quoting them also. So this is the easiest way to memorize, it's just listen. So he learned the whole Bhagavad Gita. We now have in our movement devotees born in devotee families, 6, 7-year-old kids who know like 5 chapters of the Gita by heart, just to make you feel bad. I'm telling you that. No, actually, I'm telling you that to inspire you. And it is part of what it means to be a devotee, that we should learn these verses. They're very, very purifying, and we use them in our preaching. So I think that's one inspiration we can take from a 7-year-old who knows the whole Bhagavad Gita. Oh, but Prabhu, I don't have a good memory. Yeah, you don't have a good memory because you're not learning any verses. That's why. Learn them, your memory, use your memory, it'll get better. So I said then this other lesson we learn is that we all have to maintain ourselves. And of course, he was Naistiki Brahmachari, so he decided to go a different route, so he didn't have to maintain himself. Although that king, when Bhaktisiddhanta retired, that king gave him maintenance, gave him like he was being paid well, and the king kept paying him, and so he didn't have to worry. But after a while, he didn't take the money, as a sannyasi. I probably didn't feel it properly. But it shows that if you learn Shastra well, and you can speak it well, there'll be people who will pay you. They'll give you donations because you inspire them. I mean, I was at, we took prasadam. I was in Houston. I was with some devotees. We took prasadam. And after prasadam, I said, so just see, if you can inspire people with Krishna consciousness, they'll feed you. So your food problem is solved, right? If you inspire people with Krishna consciousness, they'll want you to stay with them. Your housing problem is solved. And they'll also give you donations. Of course, you're saying, yeah, that's easy for you to say. It's not going to happen. I'm just a woman in Mexico. It's not going to happen. But not entirely true. If I'm not saying drop everything, but you understand the principle that if you give people Krishna, they reciprocate, they give back. So this king was so happy. He's here. I will support you for life. You've given us so much. And so the other side of that is we see that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not want to become entangled, didn't need to get married. So it didn't make sense to him that he would need to pursue his education. And he, even though he was a UDO, university dropout, like I am, I'm following the footsteps of the great acharyas, he was offered a seat in, I think, as a teacher of astrology or Sanskrit. I think it was astrology. He was offered a seat. And anytime you want to come, you can be head of this department. So he excelled in astrology when he was young, like a teenager, and that's where he got the name Saraswati. Siddhanta Saraswati, that name was conferred upon him for his excellence in astrology. And Prabhupada, when it was asked about astrology, he said, yes, my Guru Maharaj was an expert astrologer, but when he became serious about his preaching mission, he dropped it. In other words, that was not important. It's a subsidiary portion of the Vedas. It may be useful for us, but as a preacher, he wasn't going to continue that. So that also shows that when you're preaching and you have the taste for knowledge, you have to be careful because there may be knowledge you just like learning for learning's sake, but it's not really necessary. So he gave that up. I'm not saying astrology is not useful, but I'm saying it was not something really Prabhupada encouraged. although typically Brahmins did it, but at least the example of Saraswati Thakur was that he gave that up for spreading Krishna consciousness. So one of the things that he did, and this is exactly what Prabhupada did, he wanted to establish pure devotional service, and that had become lost, as we said, with the many sampradayas, with all kinds of ideas. And there were devotees at that time who totally rejected Bhaktivinoda Thakur and was creating like havoc in India. Vaishnavas, like Gaudiya, apparently Gaudiya Vaishnavas, rejecting Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and therefore obviously rejecting Bhaktisiddhanta. And this trickled down later. Even some of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples were contaminated by these ideas, and they left him, saying that his teachings are wrong. So it was a whole jungle of misconception. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, as his prana mantra says, apasiddhanta dvanta harine. If there was any apasiddhanta, he would correct it. That was his goal. And so he was pointing out these deviations, and he made many enemies. Prabhupada said he had many enemies. You could imagine, right? He's pointing out deviation. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is all these people. It's like I'm putting an end to your masquerades. I'm pulling off your mask and showing the world that this is not right. So many enemies. He exposed the so-called Brahmins, and so he was being attacked. And physical attacks were there. Even Prabhupada said these smarta Brahmins went to the police and gave them 25,000 rupees. 25,000 rupees in 19, whatever it was, let's say 27. Oh my God. That is a huge amount of money. And the police went to Bhaktisiddhanta and said, be careful. These smarta Brahmins tried to bribe us to kill you. And it's known in India that police take bribes. Justice may not be realized without bribing the police. And the police said, we do take bribes, but not to kill a sadhu. It's India. They're not going to do that. But the police came and warned him. They said, you should be careful. And during parikrama, they were throwing rocks. The smarta Brahmins got all these people to stone the devotees. They just were so angry. So the reason I'm bringing up this point is that Prabhupada said, I learned this from him, and I also did the same thing. So you can, same thing. You can see in Prabhupada's life that when there was some apasiddhanta, he became like a lion. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was called Singha Guru because he was a lion. The lion established the proper conceptions of our philosophy as distinguished from these false ideas. And he would attack. He would go on the attack, attack and expose and destroy. And sometimes we saw Prabhupada do that, and sometimes we didn't understand why. But these deviations, Prabhupada could see, here's a line, just move it slightly. And then, by the time it gets to the moon, it's, hundreds of thousands of miles off, right? So Prabhupada could see that there's a slight deviation that's going to go off. And then we are going to lose our opportunity to be Krishna conscious because we'll have the wrong idea. So having the proper conception, understanding philosophy is very important. That's why Prabhupada wrote so many books. So don't be an ignorant devotee and not read Prabhupada's books and not try to understand philosophy, because you could be deviated. I mean, probably not, because we're in ISKCON and we have capable people guiding us. But if you ever hear from someone outside of ISKCON, they may guide you well or they may misguide you. It happens sometimes, different ideas. And if you don't know Prabhupada's books, then you'll get confused. And so we want bhakti, but often bhakti is dependent on knowledge, because that knowledge guides you straight. And if you don't have it, you get deviated. So anyway, we can learn that from him. And Prabhupada's Prabhupada wanted us to learn the philosophy also so we could explain it to other people. We could represent it, not just understand it ourselves, but represent it to others. So that's something we learn, that sometimes we have to expose people in a nice way. Maybe we're not the guru of ISKCON. We're not 50 years older than the person we're talking to. Well, I might be. Easier for me. So we have to do it in maybe a more mild way, but we need to expose them. And in India, people expect gurus to be heavy. The word guru means heavy. So in India, if you're heavy, sometimes it has a really good effect. People appreciate it. Say, thank you, I needed to hear that. That may be changing now, so we have to be sensitive. But the principle is exposing. Now there was another principle. This is really, really interesting. There's another principle that was quite common in those days to study Krishna's pastimes when you're not really, the more intimate pastimes with the gopis, when you're not really qualified to understand them. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was very careful about this. And he actually forbid his devotees to talk about Rasa Leela, to discuss it, and even to discuss Leelas with the gopis. As I said, don't talk about it. He said, chant the holy name and become purified. First deserve, then desire. And Prabhupada used to say that also first. And you become qualified by offenseless chanting, Shuddhanam. And then that will all be revealed anyway, you'll understand it. But Radha Kund is at Govardhan, but it's next to Govardhan. Radha Kund's a little further away. So he sang a song and he said that we will worship the acharyas in Radha Kund, but we won't live there because we're not qualified. We will serve them there, but we'll live a little bit away, a little further away, indicating don't think you can, without qualification, you can understand Radha and Krishna. So don't live in Radha Kund. You're not qualified. Live away, live a little bit away. Serve the acharyas, but don't live there. So that was the idea. And there were books about intimate Leelas of Radha and Krishna, and he forbid his devotees to read those books. And these books you can get Lori Bazaar. They're all translated. Govinda Lilamrita, Ujjvala Nilaman. Some people may say, well, not such a big deal. But anyway, I'm just saying that this is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, and Prabhupada was similar. And of course, the Leelas are there. And so I was told in Gaudiya Math, like if they're reading through the Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, when it comes to Ras Leela or intimate Leelas with the gopis, there'll be no explanation. They'll just read through that, and then they'll get, once they get through that, then they'll give class on those other verses, but this they'll just read through. It's interesting. And I was in a Gaudiya Math and I said, could you chant Sri Rupa Manjari? Sri Rupa Manjari is a prayer to Rupa Goswami, who is Rupa, the prayer to Rupa Manjari, who is Rupa Goswami. And so in Krishna Leela, Rupa Goswami, and Gauranga Leela, Krishna Leela, Rupa Manjari, and I got up early this morning. This is what happens when I get up early. My brain turns to jelly, and I forget what I'm talking about. Rupa Goswami, Rupa Manjari. Yeah. So this is, we might sing the song and we don't even understand it that well, and we're kind of like, what does it mean? Who's Rupa Manjari? Who's Rupa Goswami? Oh yeah, he wrote Nectar Devotion. There we don't understand, but on a more esoteric level, it's very deep. And Rupa Manjari is one of the main maidservants of Radha. And so I asked them to sing that song. I was just curious, like what melody did they sing? I wasn't even in the bhav of that song. I was like, what melody did they sing? Would you chant it? And they said, our gurus don't allow us to sing this song. Wow. Isn't that amazing? They won't even allow them Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. We're singing, like, what's the problem? What's your problem? Just sing it. And they said, no. He said, our gurus can sing it. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was leaving, he asked one of his disciples to sing Sri Rupa Manjari. One started singing, and he said, no, let this other one sing, Sridhar Maharaj. Because as far as I understand, he felt that Sridhar Maharaj had the deepest understanding of that song, and he wanted him to sing it. So he can sing it because he understands it. You sing it, Sri Rupa Manjari Pada Haribo, and we're just jumping around. We don't even know what we're singing, That wasn't Bhaktisiddhanta's mood at all. It was very serious. No, the one I think he stopped singing was like light years more advanced than we are. But he felt that Srila Sridhar Maharaj had maybe the deepest connection with that song, and he asked him to sing it. So interesting. So there's a lot of caution there. Should we not understand these leelas? We should. If you don't understand these leelas, eventually at some point in your life, where are you going to go in your spiritual life? Because this is like Ras Leela. It's like where everything ends. It's the center. It's the most important. It's the highest. We should understand it with caution. And Prabhupada this doesn't mean like behind closed doors we can't discuss it, but certainly we should understand our disqualification, and certainly that should not be the only thing we discuss. And Prabhupada didn't really discuss it publicly. I mean, it's in his books, but it wasn't his normal kata. So they are very cautious about it. And the whole Gaudiya Math, as far as I've seen, not the whole Gaudiya Math, but that generation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, as far as I've seen, is quite cautious, quite lean in discussing leelas of that level. I put poetry to the Ras Leela, and I was even like afraid and I read it with some music background. And I was even afraid to let it out. And I was going to actually sing it as a song. I said, should I do this? This is like, because to understand that Leela, you have to be free from lust yourself. Otherwise, how can you understand it? Because that Leela has nothing to do with lust. And we have lust in our heart. Like, what qualification do we have? Okay, we hear it, we try to understand it, but we understand our disqualification. So that's why he was saying, okay, live in Govardhan. That's lower than Radhakund. And then from there, we'll go to Radhakund, we'll do our service there to the acharyas who are qualified to live there, and then we'll go back and stay in our lower position. So we'll always respect it, that it's so high, I just respect it. I don't think I'm there. So you may know the story when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta went to Radhakunda. Radhakunda is the most sacred place in the universe. It's where Radha's lake is and Krishna's lake is, and you have to be very Krishna conscious to really appreciate it. So there are many, many, many Babajis live there, retired renunciates who are very absorbed, apparently, in Radha Krishna Lila, talking about it and, marrying their own gopis on the side, things like that. So they're not really genuine. So interestingly, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta went there, and all the Babajis came, think, okay, he's going to give the nectar. And certainly Bhaktisiddhanta could give the nectar because he himself is a manjari. And if you're a manjari, like, you don't even need shastra. You can see it all and speak. That's what you're seeing. What is it like? How do you serve Radha? What are the different groups in the spiritual world and the rasa and everything? What do you need to read? You're a manjari. You live it. That's what you do eternally. And he spoke on the Isopanishad, which is generally considered a book for jnanis, not for bhaktas, not for devotees. And they all left. They go, oh, he's a jnani. He's saying, you're not qualified to hear Leela. You're all cheaters, pretenders, materialistic, pretending to be devotees, but you're materialistic and you're smoking ganja and have girlfriends on the side and you think that's spiritual. So another message we could say, you need to hear this philosophy because you don't understand. And not even the ABC, you're not the body. So that is the, it's like the prerogative of the Acharya to teach the way he wants to teach. So this was one of his main services, to expose, that's the word, to expose bogus sampradayas. And then he established, as we know, 63 temples in India, one in Burma, but I think he actually established one in London also. I don't think it still exists there, in London or Germany. And so that was out of nothing. But now I want to talk a little bit about his chanting, because this is really interesting. And I read some things this morning that he had said about chanting, which are really beautiful ideas. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was, his life is dedicated to bhakti. He's with his father. They're doing parikramas, pilgrimages, and so forth. And then he's so into bhakti, he makes a vow that he wants to chant 1,000,000 names. And so he calculated, if I chant 192 rounds a day for 9 years, more or less, that will make 1,000,000. So he built the hut himself out of bamboo and thatch. That's the way the story goes. He built it himself. And he would sit in this hut, rain and sun and like that. He'd sit in the hut and chant. And then there was no bed and there was no pillow. And he would just lay down and sleep. He didn't sleep that much. So you can imagine, not much sleeping, not much eating, not much facility. And he was chanting 192 rounds a day, every day for 10 years. And whenever we hear someone chanting 192 rounds, the obvious thought is, like, for us, our experiences, oh, wow, when I get my 16 rounds done, I'm tired. That's, it's like, well, I hope you don't stay in that state forever. I hope you get beyond it. So, but you know what I'm saying, that sometimes 16 rounds is like, oh, I got my rounds done. That was 2 hours, Sometimes it's nectar. Sometimes it's hard. And even when it's nectar, it's like, okay, maybe I'll chant 25, and you get to 25. It's like, I don't know about 32. Get to 32. We're not on that level yet to have that kind of ruchi. So we have to ask the question, well, what is going on if someone is chanting 192 rounds? And I want to explain what he explained. It's really beautiful. And this will explain the third verse of Shishastakam. If you've ever read this verse and questioned, how is it that by being humble, you can chant 24 hours? Have you ever had that? Can you connect the dots for me? Like, okay, I'll try to be humble, appreciate others, not want any appreciation for myself. And then I can chant constantly. That's what the verse says. Not that you can, you will. That's when you're in that mood. So I will explain it the way Bhaktisiddhanta explained it. It's beautiful. And this will also explain why he can chant 192 rounds a day and we can't, without getting really drained. You can imagine. What round are you on, Prabhu? I'm on 123. And then I'm really hungry. I'm tired, thirsty. My mind's going crazy. Hopefully we won't remain that way forever. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that you, and when I say you, I mean all of us, we cannot perfect our chanting just by trying to perfect our chanting. To perfect our chanting, we also have to be able to serve the Vaishnavas, serve our gurus, be humble particles of dust at the feet of our gurus, humble servants of our devotees, sisters, brothers, respect them, stop criticizing, all of that. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, if you can do this, then you will get the taste for chanting. Now, this is really interesting. I'm going to take it further, but I want to just take a sidetrack. If I forget, where I was going with it? Just remind me where we're going with it. If you do these things, you'll get a taste. And so Tanya's going to remind me if I forget, because when I'm tired, I forget. So we criticize sometimes, don't we? And if we're unfortunate, we may even become angry with the devotee, and we may even blaspheme, or we may say things very bad about a devotee. Now, let's contextualize this. We know there are two offenses. The first offense to blaspheme is called Sindhu Sadhu Ninda, to criticize or blaspheme a devotee, and the third offense to Guru Abhagya, to disobey the order of the Guru, not follow the order, minimize the order. The goal, you could say, in a sense, the goal of Bhakti, even you could say the goal of ISKCON, the goal of Krishna consciousness, is to come to the stage of being able to chant Shuddha. Shuddha means pure. So you have Namavas, you have Nam Aparad, Nam, the name, Aparad, offense. You have Nam Abhas, a reflection, a shadow, a dim reflection of Nam. It's not the complete name, it's a reflection. And then you have Shuddha Nam, the pure name. So our goal is to chant the pure name. That's the objective. That's what we're trying to do, right? So now let's just keep that thought and hold that thought, Prabhus and Prabhurinis. It's actually Prabhvis. You know, because women are called Brahmacharinis. Sometimes the Brahmachari is called Prabhurinis. I don't know. Maybe it is a Sanskrit word, but I understand it's Prabhi is the feminine of Prabhu, just to be politically Sanskrit correct here. Okay, so let's hold this thought. Let's not even put it on the side. Let's bring it back to the front burner. The goal, my goal, one of the goals in my life is to chant pure holy name. Because if I chant pure holy name, I get love of Krishna. And love of Krishna is the goal. And this is the way to do it. There's no other way. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam. This is the only way you'll get love in this age of Kali. Nothing else you do will give you love. Everything else you do will support you so you can chant purely, and then you'll get love. That's the idea. More muscle menos. That's how we understand it. But it's the name that gives love. We know that. You might say, well, Parikshit Maharaj was perfect in hearing Bhagavatam. That's true, but it's Kali Yuga now. So it's the name. And hearing Bhagavatam will purify you so you can chant a pure name. So the goal is to chant a pure name. Okay, so hold that thought. That's our goal. Rasika, that's your goal. Talia, that's your goal. Tanya, that's your goal. Radhapriya, that's your goal. Gurangi, that's your goal. Gabriella, Ryan, Janaki, and whoever else is out on Facebook. That's your goal. The goal of your life is to chant pure. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said just once, say the name once purely, because if you can, your material life is completely finished. It's over. You could say it purely once. So our goal is pure. Okay, now, first offense. If I commit offense, it's called offensive chanting. Or if I commit offense, but I'm trying not to commit offense, it's called namabhas. But namabhas, and obviously namaparad, does not give you shuddhanam. If I commit an offense, I don't get shuddhanam, and my goal is to get shuddhanam. Now, if it is actually my goal, not theoretically my goal, but this is what is in my heart that I want shuddhanam, then I start becoming very cautious about committing offenses, because I know if I commit offenses, I don't get shuddhanam. And therefore I start becoming very cautious about what? Criticizing, right? And then I go back to the third verse and I go, aha, the lights go on. If I respect the Vaishnavas, if I'm humble, if I glorify them and don't want respect for myself, then I will chant. Okay, always. How can you chant always? I think the answer is clear. You have to have some taste. So Bhaktisiddhanta is saying, if you serve the Vaishnavas, If you're humble, you will be gifted with a taste. And if we actually had a taste for the holy name, it will be hard to stop chanting. Of course, we have service, so we wouldn't just be sitting in our room chanting. It's not what Prabhupada wants us to do. But having said that, when you come to the platform of taste, then if needed or desired or the right situation is there, you could chant 192 rounds and stay awake and like transcend sleeping and eating because you have so much taste. And so that's how he did it, because a pure devotee, more humble than a blade of grass, he's chanting, no problem, 192 rounds. No problem chanting 22 hours. The only problem is stopping to sleep and eat. That's a bigger problem. Because now once you have ruchi, then you continue. So, sometimes devotees say, oh, I lost my taste. I'm only chanting 1 round a day. Like, 1 round a day? Krishna has given you 24 hours and you're only giving him 10 minutes? Like, hello, what's wrong with you? What's wrong is I must have committed some offense somewhere. I must have done something wrong and I lost my taste. So I have to beat myself up, beat my head with a shoe and a broomstick and get myself back to chanting. And once I chant and I stop making offenses, I start to get the taste. Then I think, whoa, I was so stupid. 16 rounds is nectar and it's easy. And if you have a taste, 64 rounds is easy and it's nectar. It's like, no problem. I'll just get up at 2 o'clock and I'll chant till like 9:30, 10, 64 rounds. What's the problem? I have the rest of the day to do say that. You're thinking, oh, I couldn't do that. That's so difficult. Oh, I'm not saying you should do it, and I'm not saying you can do it. But what I'm saying is when you come to the offenseless stage and begin Shuddhanam, then you can. It's very natural. It doesn't require determination. Just like I always joke, how much determination do you need to eat pizza and ice cream? Okay, build my determination. They're serving pizza and ice cream. How am I going to eat this? That's ridiculous. So it's the same way with the holy name. Naturally, it's relishable, so you chant it. So this is important in our own lives, where there's a lack of taste for chanting. That means there's a lack of proper chanting, and we could be making any of the offenses, but let us look at what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying. If I'm humbly serving and respecting the other Vaishnavas, and I'm not proud and looking for honor myself and criticizing, then I will get a taste for the holy name. So we want to add that into the mix. There's so many things we can do to chant properly, but you want to add that in the mix. It's important, right? Does that make sense? I think we can call this class Humble and Happy. That'll be the subtitle, Humble and Happy. Because when you're humble, you get a taste. So I find this very important because one of the things that many of us recognized when we tried to improve our chanting was all the things we were possibly doing that could be harming the chanting, the things we do when we're not chanting. So we became more aware of it. We became much more aware of it. Oh, what am I doing when I'm not chanting? How it's affecting me? And I didn't notice it so much because I wasn't so concerned about Shuddhanam. I was just concerned about 16 rounds of Nam. Like, if I get that done, everything's good. No, but we always want to think, okay, it's good, do it. But we always want to think it's Shuddhanam. And all this, so hard to chant, I can't chant. It's all symptomatic of a disease that we're committing offenses and we lost the taste. That's what it is. We just have to admit it, be honest. That's what's going on. And maybe I'm becoming proud. Maybe my sadhana is not good. That's going to affect you. Maybe my attitude towards devotees isn't good. Maybe my attitude towards Shastra is not good. Towards my guru is not good. Towards Prabhupada, towards ISKCON, whatever, I'll just criticize ISKCON and chant good rounds. No, that will also affect you because there are people behind ISKCON that you're indirectly criticizing. So, want to be careful. I'm not saying that there aren't situations where we have to point out there's a problem, That's different. But this is, unnecessarily criticizing a Vaishnava or blaspheming a Vaishnava. It does affect you. The greater the blasphemy, the greater the Vaishnava, the more it affects you. So, if you really have to criticize, find bhaktas and bhaktins, because it'll have the least damage, right? First, they won't like it, but at least you won't, end up like poisoning yourself that much. But it's actually a fact. The greater the offense and the greater the Vaishnava. It's like a chemical combination. Hare Krishna. So that's something we can learn from that Leela. We spoke last night in the temple that Bhaktisiddhanta really stressed humility. Like it's all over. It's all over everything. So this connection with humility and taste and Shuddhanam, I hope it's clear now. And he said something else very interesting. He said that anything that you do that you call sadhana, which is our practice, that in any way gets in the way of your chanting, in other words, in terms of time or the purity of your chanting, you call, I'm going to do deity worship for like 12 hours today, and I won't chant any rounds. Or I start my first round at 9 o'clock at night while I'm falling asleep. He said any sadhana that gets in the way of chanting purely does not deserve to be called sadhana. Wow. And only that which helps your chanting, pure chanting, deserves to be called sadhana. So worshiping the deity, reading Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, living in a holy place, chanting, yeah. So these things are the 5 angas, the 5 most important angas, parts of bhakti. And these things all help the chanting. But, what if I read Bhagavatam all morning and I don't start chanting till 3 in the afternoon and my mind is restless? Then your Bhagavatam is getting in the way of your japa. So it's a nice thought. I mean, you can look at it in different ways according to the details, but just the principle is don't allow things to get in the name of sadhana, don't allow things to get in the way of your ability to chant Shuddhanam, because chanting purely is our goal. And you can't just decide to chant purely, but you can do all the things that will bring you to pure chanting, such as all the things we teach in the japa workshops and retreats, and serving the Vaishnavas, practicing humility, not wanting to use the name for some personal reason or for your own glorification. So that is something. Now, I think on Wednesday, we should also talk about Bhaktisiddhanta, because there's so much to say about such a great personality. But the last thing I wanted to say before I take your questions or comments, and if you have any, just put them in the chat, is that whenever I read about the life of Bhaktisiddhanta, I see many, many parallels between what he taught and did and what Prabhupada taught and did. And one of the qualifications of a disciple is to really pick up on the essence of the heart of what the Guru wants. So we say, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam. Mano means mind, and Abhishtam means desire. The mind and desire, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam. The Rupa Goswami, this is a prayer. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Gadamayam. Taditi Swapadantikam. When, Kada, Swayam Rupa Gadamayam, when will Rupa, who understood the heart and desire of Mahaprabhu and established that as his heart and desire is the mission, when will he show me his mercy? So that is the qualification of a disciple. He understands the heart. And so when I read about Bhaktisiddhanta, there's all these little things, and I go, wow, Prabhupada picked that out. And it seems like not everybody picked it out, or picked it out in the same way, or gave it the same amount of focus, or even picked it out at all. And Prabhupada would sometimes say, I picked this from my Guru Maharaj, or my Guru Maharaj used to say, I observed this, I noticed this, I paid attention to this. And so the more you read about Bhaktisiddhanta's life, the more you will see, oh, Prabhupada had answered a question, and that was the same answer that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave. We didn't know it was Bhaktisiddhanta's answer. It's exactly what he said, perfectly, representing Bhaktisiddhanta. And when you study a Gaudiya Vaishnavism more deeply, you'll see it's not so easy to do that, because there's so much philosophy, there's so much apparent contradiction. And so Prabhupada's coming and saying, no, it's like this. It's like this. It's like this. It's like this. Now, Prabhupada has saved us from that potential massive confusion by perfectly representing the ideals of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for us. Focus on this, focus on this, focus. This is wrong, don't do that. My Guru Maharaj never allowed that. He called that sahajiya, apasampadaya. It's this, it's not this. So you'll see that the reading about Bhaktisiddhanta ends up glorifying Prabhupada's life so much, because you see what an amazing disciple he was to understand. So you could say, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta manobhishtam. Prabhupada understood Bhaktisiddhanta's heart. And that's really what I've seen in our movement. The devotees who understood Prabhupada's heart were always the ones who excelled. They knew whether it was book distribution or building Mayapur, Varnashram, farms, schools, they understood, oh, Prabhupada wants schools. Oh, Prabhupada wants Varnashram. Oh, he wants book distribution. He wants rest. It was not whimsical. They understood it, or the many things that he wanted. And they gave preference and priority to it. So that's what we're meant to do. It's what Krishna consciousness means. It means we do what the Guru wants, not what we want. There's one last thing I want to say, which is really interesting. He said the main disease in this world is that we think things are ours, that these possessions are ours. He said that's the main disease. That's interesting, isn't it? What did he mean by that? Well, we've talked a million times about how spiritual life means to think that this is for Krishna, it's not for me. So he's saying the main disease, basically he's just giving the detail of what it means to be the enjoyer. The main disease is that I think I'm enjoyer, because if I think I'm the enjoyer, then I think these are my possessions. This is mine. And if this is mine, ladies and gentlemen, this is my new phone that I can enjoy. Look at that. You see Prabhupada on my phone. You're seeing the picture reflected on my back wall. And here's a picture of Krishna. Can't even see. Oh, my head's in the way. This is like that. I'm not smart. I don't have a skill set because everything's backwards. You can see tiny. Oh, you can all see yourselves. Okay. This is fun, right? There you are. Wow. Out of body experience. So, it's his way of saying that the malady, the disease is, I think I'm the enjoyer, and because I think this is mine, that's why I brought it up, because this is mine, because it's mine, I can enjoy it. If it's not mine, I can't enjoy it. It's not yours. Oh, don't touch that. It's not yours. Oh, but can't I just play with it? No, it's not yours. It's mine. Okay. No, you can use it for me. If you want to do some work for me, I'll let you use the phone. Otherwise, you're not playing games on my phone. It's not yours. That's his point. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, what you might want to do today, for some of you, the day is later, but just go on the internet. There's so much about Bhaktisiddhanta. But what I would suggest, read, there's compilations of things he said. Read them. They'll penetrate your heart on the deepest level. It's just like his words, they go, right? It's like having a medicine. It's like a cure for cancer. It just goes to the cancer, kills it, doesn't kill anything else. It goes right to the cancer of the problem. It's very deep. It's very, very powerful. And I think I find it sometimes words of these acharyas that are very heavy are sometimes necessary, because when you're really sick, you need a potent medicine. And sometimes, and we're all, we all are who we are, for better or for worse. But sometimes we get in the modes, or more than sometimes. And these words, just knock it out. Just like, what was I thinking? It's just like he brings this, through his words, he brings the spiritual world right in front of us, and you read them. It's like you're transported with a few sentences. So that would be a nice meditation for you to do today. And there are many talks on Bhaktisiddhanta, which you could read or hear, here. Okay, so I'm gonna look, I don't know what's in the chat, if there is much, but we will find out. The sound seems a bit low today. Turn up your speakers. Is it true it's low? Sometimes everybody say, doesn't sound very loud today. And I turn up your speaker. Oh, yeah, my speakers were low. I don't actually touch it from day to day. So it's the same as it was Friday and last Wednesday. I could be speaking more quiet, and if I turn it up too loud, then it's too loud. Okay, this is from Manjari. Thank you for explaining connecting humility with pure chanting. It's so wonderful. Okay. That's all we got, no questions. So it's time to be humble. All right, so we can speak some more about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I like we know that you probably heard this famous quote, we shed gallons of blood to make one. Prabhupada would say that we shed gallons of blood to make one person a devotee. Well, that came from Bhaktisiddhanta. It said he told every soft or tender-hearted member of the Gaudiya Math should be prepared to shed 20 gallons of blood, or 20 gallons, or I don't know how many. Gallons of blood, tons of blood. That means your energy, your blood, to make one person a devotee. You should be prepared to sacrifice whatever it is. So it kind of embodies the mission of its self-sacrifice. And one of my godbrothers was explaining, he said, sometimes in different Gaudiya movements, there's a lot of emphasis on discussing the leelas of the gopis and Krishna. He said, but Bhaktisiddhanta, his emphasis was on sacrifice and self-surrender. That's where his emphasis was, because, you could hear the leelas, and we should hear the leelas and become purified, but unless we also talk about sacrifice, self-surrender, then we may not actually be qualified to hear, or we may not get to this level of surrender that we need to be. So that was more of his emphasis: self-sacrifice, service, mission, spreading Krishna consciousness, take it out to the world. So I think that's an important one. Self-sacrifice and introspection, looking at yourself, improving yourself. We've talked a lot about this, but a lot of times when we're talking about don't criticize others, but look to your own faults, it's because, and I'm emphasizing it and I'm explaining it in different ways, it's all basically, not all, but predominantly things I read that he said about this. And it was quite a theme, because he knows the conditioned tendency he knows the tendency of conditioned souls is to find fault, to criticize, to bring down. So he saw that could ruin your bhakti, and it could ruin the culture of the mat. And so he spoke about it a lot, because it's such a strong tendency within the conditioned soul. And it is such a detrimental tendency for our bhakti. So spoke about it over and over again. And so we understand that the fact that he spoke about it so much means it's really important, because it could ruin your bhakti, mad elephant. So that's something to pay attention to. Why did he speak so much about humility? Why did he speak so much about finding fault with yourself, improving yourself? Why did he not allow his disciples to criticize? He wouldn't listen to the criticism. It says a lot, I think, right? Both for the organization and the individual. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I'd like to talk about. Well, some good news. Today, on Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day, some very good news. Well, something I forgot to say when he, just about the exalted nature of Bhaktisiddhanta, and then I'll tell you the news. When his father moved to different places, and when they moved to Calcutta, then they were digging the ground to lay the foundation, and they found the deity of Kurma. And the way the story goes that I've read, although I've heard different ages, that he was 7 years old when they found the Kurma deity, and his father initiated him into Harinam and gave him the deity to worship when he was 7. Kurma deity. And Kurma, right, is a tortoise. He appears in the water. So as the story goes, hold on a second. As the story goes, Kurma is the deity of water, and water in Sanskrit is rasa. One of the words is rasa. And bhakti is the ocean of rasa, is the ocean of taste. Rasa means taste, liquid taste. And so Kurma is the deity of bhakti rasa, the ocean of the taste. So he gave him that deity. He gave him initiation at the age of 7. And he gave him a Nishringa mantra at that time. And later on, he was given the Nishringa deity to worship. So, so what was the story I was telling? Who remembers when I got deviated? Tanya, do you remember? I was going to tell a story. The last thing. Rewind the tape so we can hear the last thing.
That he found the Kurma deity, no?
Before that.
Before that.
I was going somewhere. It was something later in his preaching. Oh yeah. I was going to tell you the news, the good news. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was doing many things, but before he had his mission. And then he started attracting followers, as happens when you're a preacher. And one of those followers was quite a good manager. And so it was that follower who started to organize the Gaudiya Math for him. And the first temple they had was a rented house. And it was a place called Ulta Junction in Kolkata, Ulta Junction Road. The rented house on Ulta Junction Road was the first Gaudiya Math temple. And that is the place that Srila Prabhupada met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, on the roof of that temple. You know the story, right? You all know the story. Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta said, you should preach. So that is the temple he met. That's the first temple. ISKCON bought that temple. ISKCON refurbished that temple, and I think it looks probably better today than it was new then. And today is the grand opening of that temple. And somewhere online, maybe earlier or later, it already passed, you can see the grand opening of that temple. There is a trailer, and I think I sent the trailer out on my Facebook page. And it shows them refurbishing the temple, and it looks beautiful. So I'm imagining it looks more beautiful, maybe with the quality of the paint and, you know, the workers today. Maybe it's more advanced. It looks brand new and beautiful. And it's this big place, rooms and rooms and rooms. You see it, it's not like a house. It's like lots and lots and lots of rooms. It looks like a temple. So today it's being inaugurated, and in the video, the devotee is saying this is one of the most, you know, we had 26 Second Avenue, although we couldn't buy it yet, I don't think. This is one of the most important purchases for ISKCON. This is where, you know, it's a historic place, Bhaktisiddhanta met, and Prabhupada met there. So that's today. So that's on his appearance day. That's like amazing, isn't it? Did you know that? Any of you know that? Yeah, go, and you can look for the video. It's like, that's like crazy fantastic. Oh, there it is. Yeah, maybe broadcast right now. Okay, so Parananda says, I forgot how to say thank you in Polish. Why don't I remember? I just met a devotee last night who was totally American, but he speaks Polish because he was born there. Donkey, it's like something like that. I'm bad, I know. How to ultimately overcome the tendency to criticize other beings. You said other bowings. Yeah, that's the answer. Bow to them. You're either going to bow to them or try to shoot them down. Right? There may be many answers, but one of the things that always comes to mind when this question is brought up is that if I am inspired in my bhakti and I'm happy in my bhakti and I'm happy with myself also, like I don't hate myself. I like my service. I like Krishna consciousness. I'm experiencing pleasure and I like myself. At least I tolerate myself. I don't hate myself. Then tendency to criticize is going to be minimized because, you know, if your consciousness is low, criticism brings it up. If your consciousness is high, criticism brings it down. And so wouldn't you rather be talking about Krishna and relishing that? Right? I mean, you only have so many breaths in your life. So, right? That's one realization. And we have another question. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also sets an example for us by using everything, all material things in Krishna service. Yeah, that was one of his contributions. Don't renounce anything that can be used in Krishna service. Okay. So we'll just keep talking till Kormani shows up. We have another one. More nectar. Please go through this. Someone shared it. It's 25 instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Not sure, point 10 on what it means. Thank you. 10. Pay due respects to the extroverts of the world, but do not be appreciative of their manners and conduct. They are to be shaken off from your mind. In other words, jenke, right? Jenkui. I forgot how to pronounce it. Junkui. Yeah. Etiquette in general is if a person has a higher position, even as a Vaishnava, we will respect them because they have that position. But because they're materialists, we have to stay at a distance because we'll be affected by them and their thoughts will they will affect our thoughts. You know, so there's many great people and many great teachers and powerful things, but their thinking may not be something we want to adopt. So just because they're great doesn't mean they're great for us. Okay, class is officially ended, or japa has officially started. Thakura. I don't think we ended the live stream, did